Jeffrey Frank is a psychotherapist in Washington, D.C., and has worked with many older couples with marital issues. Also, we want to hear from you and some of the issues that you may be facing in our audience. Give us a call at 1-800-528-2090. You know, Jeffrey, I think it's interesting, especially in partnerships that have been together for maybe 10, 20, 30 years. You hear the phrase, I wish we could take it back to where we were in the beginning. But is that really the right attitude? I mean, that's almost a time in your relationship history that may be insignificant because things have changed.
Hopefully, if all goes well in the relationship, in the history of the relationship, things have changed, that you have developed, that you have grown together. So I do understand the draw to the beginning of a relationship. That's when things are heightened, when passion is ramped up, and it's a little bit of a fantasy moment, a fantasy memory that might not be so relevant in the current state of the relationship.
So when reality sets in, you've been together for a while, how do you keep that romance alive? Is it about the big date and sort of having time together and making a big deal out of it, or is it something different that you should think about?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because I see when I'm checking out at the supermarket the glossy magazines with like how to keep your romance alive, and I think that we're kind of fed this notion that our romance, our relationship should have a certain level of passion to it. I think that it's important for couples to really define that specifically to themselves and not to define it in measuring to popular culture or to what the magazines are telling. So, date night, those kinds of things are, fun and great to add on, but sometimes they're things that they're a little contrived. And in some ways, they kind of set you up possibly for disappointment, exactly.
And that takes you back even further, exactly. So what should couples do to sort of reignite the passion, or at least keep romance a part of things? I mean, I think one thing that so many people do is they take each other for granted. You forget that this is an individual that has their own likes and dislikes or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's another point that I'm glad you're hitting on here, because I've come up with this term, which is not a romantic term, but I'm calling it fossilized, where individuals within the relationship have fossilized each other in how it was in the beginning, in how they were when they first met, and 10, 20, 30, hopefully years will have gone by. And like I said, the individuals should develop, their interests might change, their passions might change, their opinions might change, and for the couples to be flexible, to be not so rigid, and to be open, to be curious.
That's the word that I always think about. When I think about somebody that I'm attracted to, I'm curious about them. And you have to maintain that curiosity, because that's sexy when somebody takes an interest in you like that.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Paying attention, I think, is what you're talking about, and not taking for granted, and not assuming that they're still that same person, that they have developed, and that they can offer you something new. Maybe you haven't looked at it in the same way. So I talk about, even in my practice, couples come in for all sorts of reasons, but I think a valid reason is to do like a State of the Union, and to have to make an appointment with an impartial person, where you can kind of look at yourself with a clearer lens that might have been kind of gotten muddy or murky or kind of narrow, and kind of freshen it, open it up a little bit more.
At what point do people need to seek couples therapy? I was telling you in the break that I've actually been through couples therapy, and it was kind of a funny story, because this guy and I were dating, and we were thinking about getting married and so on and so forth. We were having a couple of problems, a few concerns. We went to this therapist, and over the course of a couple of months, she basically said, you know what, you two really shouldn't get married.
Right.
And it was the right decision.
Okay.
It saved us, I think, both a problem, which is good news. But at what point do you think it's important to seek that independent person?
Probably sooner than you would think. A lot of times the couples that I see, I wish they had gotten to me just a little sooner.
Right.
Things escalate, emotions escalate, things kind of get, again, fossilized and rigid and kind of immovable. So
people have dug their heels in.
Exactly, and they're not willing or not interested in changing, or even working on the relationship, maybe just giving up. And so I do suggest, if there are any kinds of signs of stagnation, or where there's a lot of anger that's not necessarily anger expressed, but even anger that's not expressed, I think
that's the worst kind.
Absolutely.
Okay, Leanne from Pennsylvania, what's your comment or question this afternoon?
Hi, I have been with my boyfriend for almost 5 years, and he has a problem with talking about his feelings and how he feels about things, and I don't know how to
Draw him out?
I don't know how to draw it out, and I don't understand. Like, I don't know how to get him to sit and listen to me.
You've been dating for 4 years.
What's that?
You said you've been dating for 4 years. Have you ever discussed marriage?
A few times we have.
Okay, but I would imagine that for Leanne, that's ultimately what she wants, if she wants to stay with this person. So how does she get him to be a little bit more open?
Right. Well, it sounds like you really want to know this person better, and for some reason, I guess he's being resistant to letting you know more about him. So, you might find ways to reframe it as opposed to, I need to know how you're feeling, I need to know what your emotions are, but in a more maybe subtle way where you could just be, like I said before, like curious about him, to ask some questions that aren't so
Nobody wants to be caged.
frontal.
Nobody wants to be, exactly. Then you sort of go, oh. So I think you're right. Again, bringing up the idea of being curious again is a good thing.
Right.
Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome. Thanks for
Jeffrey Frank, keeping romance alive. Love it.